I'm Judy Shaw for NYSE Floor Talk. Joining me today is Judy Dalton. She is former Australian tennis champion and member of the WTA's Original Nine. Judy, it is wonderful to have you here. Such an honor to be here with you. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you. This is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Your first time at the New York Stock Exchange?
Definitely. On my bucket list it was.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, no,
well, it is
fantastic.
great to have you here at the
Thank
Exchange
you.
today, and thanks for sitting down with me. So, Judy, talk to me about being part of the Original Nine and how Women's Tennis Association paved the way for women's professional tennis.
Well, the Original Nine started 3 years before the WTA actually started. And we were playing at the US Open, and they had a tournament in Los Angeles, which was run by Jack Kramer. And the portion of the prize money was something like 8-1, and yet there was, say, 8 out of the 10 top women in the world who were playing, and there was maybe 3 out of the top 20 of the men, but they wouldn't change the prize money. So we decided that that was the case so many times, so we thought we should really do something about it. So at the US Open, we got a questionnaire together on a piece of paper, and in those days it wasn't played at Flushing Meadows, it was played at Forest Hills, which is a private club. And so two of the girls stood at the gate, and they handed out these little bits of paper with questionnaires on them, which asked things like, would you watch women's tennis? What do you think about women's tennis? Should they get reasonable prize money? You know, this is what's happening. And it was really interesting because one of the questions was, the majority of men, say 45%, said they'd rather watch women's tennis than men because they could associate their game better with a women's game than a men's game.
Okay.
Right? So we thought if that was the case, then we wouldn't just get women, hopefully, to come to the tournament, we'd get men as well. So that progressed to another little meeting, and we had a meeting of maybe 60 of the girls, say. And we said, look, you know, we're going to try and form a group and do this. Well, it got down to like 12 people because the others didn't want to take the chance. And we didn't know all the problems that were going to happen after we'd done it.
Right.
So there was 9 of us originally, and we went to Houston in Texas where Gladys Hellman she owned the women's magazine, the tennis magazine. And she said she would be prepared to help us to get sponsorship and organise the tournaments. So we had to vote on that. So it was all very secret. We had little bits of paper going around like this. It's a bit like the old stock exchange, you know, where all the papers are going. And so basically we decided that Gladys would do it, and that the 9 of us would group together to do it. But was how we were going to do it. So we had to get a lawyer to advise us as to what was going to be. And there's different classifications of professional things, and they had a professional group. It was open tennis, and so basically everybody's professional. But because we wanted to go together as a group, which was called the Virginia Slims eventually, we had to get paid something. So Gladys said, why don't we do just a $1 bill, right? So we signed for $1.
$1.
Of which I'm the only one that's got the dollar left, the only one. And so we all signed it, right? So then was a question of how we went about the next tournament. So they had a tournament in Houston, the tennis club were prepared to have a tournament for us. And Virginia Slims then came in and did a sponsor. I know it's very long-winded. But
no, it's wonderful to hear.
So they were very good because Gladys knew the chairman, Joe Coleman of Philip Morris. And Virginia, and how it became Virginia Slims was that they were just about to launch a cigarette, I don't know whether you remember, called Virginia Slims with the flapper and all that. And so it was a perfect time. We were lucky because it was a perfect timing for us. And of course, we couldn't do it today because you wouldn't allow cigarettes or anything.
Right.
So they said they would put in some seed money and see how it went. And the tournament was quite a good success. There were quite a lot of people came. And everybody thinks, that we signed because we wanted equal prize money. But that wasn't the reason why we did it. We did it because we wanted A, recognition, because people didn't really recognise it. B, have the opportunity to play and to earn some money. And that people, if they were qualified, not just in tennis, but like you at your job, if you should be paid the same as somebody else.
Right.
And that was the idea. And everybody thinks, that, we signed because we wanted equal prize money. And that wasn't the case at all. We wanted a fairer distribution of it. So we played that one, which was in September. And then they had one, which I wasn't at because I'd gone back to Australia. But they had one in November, I think it was. And then we started the circuit in January here in America, which was called the Virginia Slims. But in the meantime, because there were two Australian girls, Kerry Melville and I, we were suspended by the association in Australia. They wouldn't let us use any equipment, no shoes. They wouldn't let us play in the tournaments. We couldn't play in the Australian Championships, nothing, because they didn't recognise us. So, and then the US were in the same boat, and they said to the girls, we can't do it. Now, we didn't know that when we did that we would never be able to, well, we thought we wouldn't be able to play in any Grand Slams ever. We didn't think that. And so Gladys was great. She fought for it. And we got to remember that there was no phones, no texts or anything. It was all telegrams or phone calls. And so telegrams went backwards and forwards, and Gladys worked really hard here on the USTA. And eventually the USTA said yes, they probably agreed that we should be allowed to continue. And so then we got to the International Tennis Federation, and luckily they agreed that we shouldn't be suspended, that we should be allowed to continue and to be able to play in the Grand Slams. So, but it was there were maybe a month or month and a half when we didn't know whether we might never play tennis again.
Wow.
And so, but we didn't know all that. You never preempt all those sort of things.
Right.
So then once we knew that, we then were able to start to play the Virginia Slims, and then different towns came in, different clubs came in, and then we had a circuit. And then after that year, it proved successful, and then we got some of the other better players who wouldn't sign in the beginning because they didn't want to take the chance. Like everything, people aren't prepared. So, but the original 9 have all stayed together as a group, you know what I mean? I know, and because I think we all sacrificed so much, whereas the other people wouldn't be prepared to do that.
Right.
And then following on from the success of that, Billy said that we should really have an association, not a union exactly, but an association. So then in May 73, they got all the girls at a meeting, and Jack Kramer, who'd been so against us all the time, never thought that we'd succeed. And when we called this thing to the WTA, it was very interesting, because I don't know whether you've ever seen a film of it, but they've got a documentary on it, and it's got a film with all like this, with all the girls in the room and a few of the committee at the top, and Jack Kramer, and there was a glass door here, and Jack Kramer was peeping round the corner to see what was going on, to see how many people were in the room, and to see what was happening. So in a way we stuck it to him, if that's the right word to use. Yes. Yeah. And so then we formed the WTA, and so that's today what we're celebrating, the 50 years this year.
50 years, right. And so that anniversary is coming up on September 23rd.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
so 50
that's right.
years. So tell me, what does this anniversary mean to you, and how are you celebrating?
Well, we've celebrated the whole year. We've been lucky. Oh, I have, because we started in Australia by doing it and inviting the original 9, 7 of which were there, which was pretty nice. And then we went to the French, and they had a celebration at the French. And then we went to Wimbledon, and we had a celebration at Wimbledon. And then I was lucky, I went to Newport because I was inducted into the International Hall of Fame. So that was only 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And then we're having the gala event on the 25th of August here, just before the US Open. to celebrate it all. So it's been one long year. So
been
I've
a
been
fabulous
away
year.
traveling since May.
Celebrating this momentous occasion.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. Yeah.
So now, tell me, how did you get your start in tennis? Like, what
How?
inspired you?
Oh, I started when I was 5. I think.
Five. Picked up a racket?
My father was pretty good tennis player. And you have to remember, in those days they didn't have little rackets. Like we had to play with an ordinary wooden racket. Remember? So it was really hard for somebody
At
who
5
was
years old.
Yeah, but I started, and then I got to 16, and then nowadays there wasn't any tours or anything. They didn't have team tours or anything. So I didn't play from 16 to 22. So I played basketball instead.
Oh, okay.
And then I had to make a decision when I was about 22, because they wanted me to try it for the Australian basketball team. And I said, oh no, I don't think I'll do that. I think I'd rather play tennis, So I'd play tennis all the time as well, but not very much. So I went back to tennis and basically started. And so I first came away overseas in 1962. So it's a long time ago. So that's basically what happened.
Well, what a career you've had.
Yeah,
I mean, a trailblazer sitting right in front of me.
Yeah, well, it is. Well, it's interesting you're saying that, because we didn't realise all that. You do things and you don't always realise the implications, because we didn't realise the influence we'd have on Title IX.
Yeah.
Because it changed the whole atmosphere of when people gave money, because 80% went to men and 20% to the women. And it was lovely. When we played, my son lives in Scotland, and when we were in Edinburgh, we went to a golf club just outside Edinburgh and to play golf. And this girl came, she was behind the bar, and she came over and she said, oh, are you Judy Dalton? And I said, yes. And she said, oh, I just want to thank you. She said, I would never have had a professional career if it hadn't been for what you did. And I said, oh, why? And she said, because I couldn't get a scholarship to a university. She came from Czechoslovakia. And she said, because they didn't have any money and they were very limited in what they can do. And she said, because you did what you all did, she said, it changed their attitude. I got my scholarship. She said, I was able to play professional soccer, which I'd always wanted to do. She said, and I would never have been able to do it. And she said, you don't know how many people's lives you changed, which was lovely. So we took a photograph and I sent it to all the girls, and they were all thrilled to bits. But we didn't realise all that. And also, Women's Lib was just coming then, of course. So it was sort of kind of all, and then with the launch of the Virginia Slim cigarette as well, it was like it was an opportune time, but we didn't realise all that.
Yes. But look at this, 50 years later, and you're here.
And we're all still here, which is pretty amazing, really, as well.
So do you ever still pick up a racket? You still play tennis?
Yeah, I still play. Yeah, I try to. I don't run very well, but I can still hit the ball. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, Judy, such an honor to be with you here today. Thank you so much for joining me on Floor Talk.
Pleasure.